A lot of green up there. The S&P 500 up right now for an 8th day in a row. Stocks are close to their best levels of the day. It's kind of the best winning streak, not even kind of, it is the best winning streak for the S&P 500 so far this year, Emily, a far cry from 2 weeks ago.
Exactly, and you're seeing those volatility markets drop. The VIX now down almost 2% today, like you said, a far cry from just 2 weeks ago where the S&P was down 3% on a day.
Yeah, but this is an August Monday. There's not a whole lot of volume. In the S&P 500, for instance, volume is down about 30% from the 20-day average. And aside from Jay Powell on Friday, there's a lot of people just kind of waiting, marking time until they hear from Powell.
Well, you're still seeing a lot of activity in the space here. Of course, there's a lot of people who stay invested in what are they bidding up, a lot of biotech, a lot of financial stocks, and, well, quite frankly, a lot of everything. I mean, it was something like 400 plus stocks in the S&P 500. We're getting bids today, Tim.
Yeah, I feel bad for anyone who has to do decliners today. That's why I ended up taking the gainers.
Is that you?
No, that would be Emily.
Oh.
Yeah. When Carol's out, I get to do whatever I want, Romaine, when Carol's not here. So.
Do you? Yeah, I know the feeling.
Took the gainers.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, we do have green across the screen here for the major U.S. indices, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average up more than 200 points, or about 0.6% as we get the closing bells here in New York. A low volume day to be sure, but the S&P 500 continues to power on for an 8th straight session, up more than 50 points, or about 1% on the day as it tries to creep back towards that record high, reclaiming 5,600 here on the day. That's the main headline across the Bloomberg terminal. The NASDAQ composite up about 1.4% on the day. Similar moves on the NASDAQ 100, and the Russell 2000 trying to keep pace, up about 26 points on the day, or 1.2%.
Yeah, we're only about 1% off of those all-time highs for the S&P 500. As far as peeling back the layers of the S&P 500 today, 415 stocks did move higher. Only 84 stocks did move lower today. It
is pretty remarkable how broad-based this advance is. You look at the 11 sector groups in the S&P 500, and it's pretty much all green. In fact, if you break it down into 24 industry groups, the only reason you have that slice of red there is perhaps because the tech, hardware, and equipment group is mixed overall, and that's because of losses in HP. But otherwise, it is a sea of green.
All right, well, speaking of a sea of green, I got the gainers for you. I had the easy job today. I do want to start with shares of Advanced Micro Devices. AMD up by 4.5% today. They agreed to buy the server maker ZT Systems. It's a cash and stock transaction valued at just about $5 billion. The company, ZT Systems, that is going to be part of AMD's Data Center Solutions business group. And we don't often see shares of the company doing the acquiring actually move higher, but investors certainly applauded the deal, sending shares higher today by more than 4%. Also, keep an eye on shares of Palo Alto Networks. This is a company that is reporting earnings in the coming minutes. We're going to bring you those numbers as soon as we get them. Shares finishing the day higher by 2.8%. Shares have been on a tear just over the last 2 weeks. We got strong results from some cybersecurity peers, also that broader rebound in equity markets that we've been talking about. The big question is whether or not they've seen an uptick in sales post that CrowdStrike outage. So has CrowdStrike's loss been Palo Alto Networks' gain? Keep an eye on that and commentary as well. And finally, shares of McDonald's finishing in the green today. Evercore ISI analyst David Palmer raised his price target on the company from $300 to $320. Palmer is, quote, increasingly bullish on the business, which has recently seen relative market share trend improvements, Emily.
Can I just add another one to that? Fubo TV up another 18%
that was wild,
today.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, we're actually going to have the CEO on Fubo. This is just me just trying to do a shameless plug, Tim.
You can do that, but that was on Friday's news, right?
That's right, and now we have the CEO today on Monday, Tim, and I'm sure you'll be watching.
No, I'm saying that the stock moved higher on Friday. I was out Friday, so if I...
It moved up Friday and it's moved up today.
And it moved up today.
Yep.
Okay, yeah. No, I think it's a great booking. Don't get me wrong.
Thank you.
Yeah, I might walk off set here to go and watch the interview.
Thank you.
Well, first you have to listen to the decliners, Tim.
I will. I'm sorry. Please.
Way to call the shots, Emily.
As Scarlett mentioned, HP Inc., one of the only large cap stocks in the red today, falling about 3.5% as Morgan Stanley downgrades the computer hardware firm to equal weight from overweight, citing limited upside to estimates and valuation. Their previous positive stance was based on the view that the market wasn't appreciating a return to personal systems, revenue growth, stable print margins, and accelerating capital returns. This now all looks priced in, according to analyst Eric Woodring. He said overall the risk profile seems balanced for now. I'm also looking at shares of Shake Shack falling as much as 4.5%, along with peers Dutch Bros and Sweetgreen after Piper Sandler cut the stocks to neutral from overweight, tempering its view on the fast casual subsector. Analyst Brian Mullen says he's not negative on the burger chain Shake Shack, but sees the current risk reward as more balanced at current levels. You look at what the stock has done year to date, it's already up 40%. He set a price target, which now implies about a 6.2 increase from the last close for the rest of the year. And finally, I really had to go down the market cap spectrum to find another decliner. So I'm looking at Liquidia. The shares plunged as much as 41%, a record drop to their lowest level since December after the drug maker said the FDA delayed until 2025 the final approval of its Eutrepia inhalation powder to treat adults with pulmonary diseases. Needham called the delay a curveball scenario.
And I'll just add one more decliners too. Shortly in late in the cast session, we saw a big drop in shares of U.S. Steel. That was back on a report by Reuters here saying that former President Donald Trump, if he were reelected, would try to block that Nippon Steel deal. Let's take a look at the yield space. If you thought the equity action was maybe a little subdued in terms of volume, well, that nut doesn't even compare to what we saw in the Treasury space. We did see a flattening out of the curve, but you see the numbers on the screen. If you're in your car right now, nothing really to look at. We're basically talking about moves of about 1 basis point up or down here on the day, as a lot of people, of course, waiting to get a little more clarity out of the economic data this week and Jay Powell's speech on Friday.
Okay, well, before we get to Jay Powell's speech, we're going to get a bit of economic data. One piece of economic news that caught our eye today is the results of a survey from the New York Fed that talks about the share of people who actually think they're likely to be unemployed in the next 4 months. It actually reached a record high in that survey, which dates all the way back to 2014.
And at the same time, there's a rising number of
consumers. Hang on one second, Emily. We have this breaking news. This on the Palo Alto network. So the share has taken a big leg lower on a knee-jerk reaction, Scarlett, to earnings that have just crossed the wire for that fiscal fourth quarter.
Yeah, let's talk about what happened on the bottom line. $1.51 beats the consensus estimate by 10 cents. $2.2 billion in revenue, slightly higher than the consensus estimate. But when it comes to the outlook, Palo Alto Network sees first quarter revenue of anywhere from $2.10 billion to $2.13 billion, a pretty narrow range. Analysts were looking for $2.11 billion, and first quarter adjusted EPS of $1.47 to $1.49. That is higher than the consensus estimate of $1.43. Overall full year revenue anywhere from $9.10 billion to $9.15 billion. Again, higher than the average analyst estimate, and full year EPS $6.18 to $6.31. Analysts were looking for $6.22. So a beat certainly on the quarter that ended, and it looks like a decent outlook as well when it comes to the consensus estimate, and the stock rising in after-hours trading now.
Yeah, we're going to get a fuller breakdown of these numbers in a few minutes with Dan Ives a little bit later, guys.
All right, so it looks like shares actually moving higher. There was that knee-jerk reaction, Romaine, that you mentioned, lower just after the numbers crossed, but shares up by 2.2% right now. The company's chairman and CEO saying that they finished off the year with strong execution on the platform strategy in the fourth quarter.
We're going back to our radio chat here. So going back to that survey of from the New York Fed, it was interesting taking a look at the labor market and exactly what it's saying here, because while there's a record share of people who think they're likely to be unemployed in the next 4 months, there's also a rising number of consumers who expect to receive a job offer in the next months compared with a year from now.
Yeah, it's pretty much a mixed bag, but you can definitely feel the turn from earlier this year. There's a lot more anxiety, I think, around the whole labor market overall. So maybe it's time to kind of distract yourself with things like collectibles. McDonald's has these new adult Happy Meal cups. Have you guys heard about this?
Adult Happy Meals?
Happy
Is this
Meals
with like
were for
liquor
kids
or something?
No, they've turned into like a collectible gold mine for these cartoon-themed cups. They've showed up on eBay, and they fetch prices as high as $100.
So these are cups really for kids, but adults are stealing them from the kids.
Pretty much.
Is that what's going on?
Yeah.
Is there an economic indicator here? I'm getting sort of like 2021 FOMO, sort of like,
Yeah. Well, I'm all for this. I remember when I was a kid, and you said, you get the little, Star Wars collectible plates and all the little big movies and stuff. I miss those days.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then go.
Life is simple then.
It was, but you can go get Barbie,
sorry.
Hot Wheels, Beanie Babies, Coca-Cola, Shrek, Jurassic Park, and Minions, or Grimace.
Oh, Grimace.
Yeah.
I would want a
Grimace.
Grimace.
He's
When
back.
I lived in Hong Kong, they had these Hello Kitty special edition dolls.
Remember when
which I
Grimace
collected.
Core was a thing?
What?
Grimace Core.
No.
Oh, gosh, no.
Grimace Core?
Yes.
I missed that one.
It was a fashion trend that swept the nation.
You
All
just
right, so
dress in
tomorrow,
purple, looking like
please
Barney?
dress in Grimace Core.
I don't get it.
Romaine.